Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cat Chat Live. Thanks so much for joining us today for what is always one of our most popular Cat Chat Lives of every summer and into the fall season. My name is Nancy Stevens. I'm here on behalf of the UK Parent and Family Association, and so pleased to welcome our guests with Cat Chat Live today, our friends from Auxiliary Services who are here to tell us all about the move-in process at UK. You will soon find out, if you have not heard already, that move-in is a well-oiled machine here at UK, and we're excited to tell you about the process that's in place to make it a great experience for your student and your family. So I'll turn things over to you and let you introduce yourselves and get us started. Thanks so much for being here today.
We thank you, Nancy, and we appreciate everybody being on today. My name is Sarah Nykirk. I'm the Executive Director of Auxiliary Services, and with me is Melissa Perot, our IT Director. We're really happy to have everyone join us today. So when you live on campus, we know that your residents, your sons and daughters tend to do better academically and graduate a lot sooner. And we also know that all of our housing is suite style. And hopefully you've been on campus and been able to see our housing. We think it's really wonderful. And we also offer one of the best residential life experiences that will help you be successful. When you live on campus, everything that you need to be successful is right outside your front door. So there's dining and resources and all the things that you need right here on campus. And so we worked really hard on our move-in process, and we're going to walk you through what that looks like.
So the move-in dates this year for new students will be August 15th, 16th, and 17th. Students received information earlier this summer about selecting a move-in appointment, which is just a 30-minute arrival window to get to campus and unload your vehicle. Most students have already selected an appointment, but please check with your students and remind them to select if they haven't already. We do ask that all students select an appointment, as this helps with traffic flow and just makes the experience better for everyone. And now Sarah is going to talk to us about our 5 tips for a smoother move-in.
So we've done this move-in thing a few times, if you will. So what we've learned through that process, obviously, is some tips that just make your life easier and make that process smooth. So the first thing we say is please pack in plastic containers that are stackable. As you can see in the photo here, it just makes life easier. And if it rains, your belongings are protected from the elements. So it's just important that you pack in those plastic containers. If you do have a dolly or cart, we ask that you bring one. Obviously, we have a lot of them available to give out, and but it's just easy if you do have one to throw it in the car. If not, don't worry about it. We'll have plenty. And we also ask that if you live within 3 hours of Lexington, not to bring everything that you own. And we say that not because we don't want you to bring everything, but we know that you'll have a chance to come back to campus later. And the less you have on move-in day, obviously, the better it is going to be for you to get in the hall real easily. But if you don't live within 3 hours and you need to bring everything, absolutely, that's okay too. Driving to campus. Now we know that you know how to get to campus, right? You've been to your orientation, you've probably been to a basketball game, some kind of athletic event. So we know you know how to get to Lexington, but we ask that you follow our color-coded routes. So turn off your Google Maps, your Waze, and follow the specific route for your residence hall. There's going to be color-coded signs, and you're going to see those in the chart here, as well as traffic controllers will be posted on the streets to help you get to your specific unloading area. So it's really important that you follow that specific route. So then when you come to the loading area that day, follow the directions of the staff. So they're going to know if you're bringing one car or two. They're going to try to keep you together so we can keep all of your belongings together on one table. And we have this unloading process down where we greet you, we welcome you, we walk you through the process, and we get your things onto a table so you're not having to worry about that. And so folks are going to be here to help you do that work. And then once we get everything unloaded onto the table, then we're going to ask you to move your car. And the reason we do that is this unloading area is for everyone who's moving into the residence hall. So when you drive up, staff will greet you. You'll see this gentleman here in this photo. He's pointing to the unloading direction that he wants the folks to go to. Then there'll be somebody that will greet you and walk you through that process. And then once we get you unloaded, we ask that one of you, because there's usually a couple of people that come together, sometimes three, someone will go move the car, someone else will stay with the items, someone else will go get a cart. And that just keeps that process moving and flowing really, really well. So after you get, all of your items out of your car, then we ask you to run in and check in. You'll do that with your UK ID. And if for some reason you've not had a chance to get your ID made, you can still do that. And there's a process for you to do that. And we hope that you do, because it's just that easily check in. If you've had your UK ID made and you've not gotten it yet, then that will be at your residence hall when you come in that day. And so you'll go in, you'll get your check-in done real quick. And then we ask that you make sure that you take a load of belongings when you go into the residence hall. And that just keeps that process going, right? So if you go in and you take a load with you, then when you get there, obviously you unload those belongings and go back, meet mom or dad or a family member or friend to get the rest of your belongings. So we just recap what we just shared. We want you to pack in plastic containers. Again, we hope that we have wonderful weather, but if we don't, those plastic containers are just helpful and they're really stackable. Again, we'll have lots of carts and dollies available for you to transport, but if it's easy and you have one, throw that in the car. Just the more we have, the better. Again, to turn off those maps, we want you to follow the color-coded route to your hall. And then we want you to have that hall code card. And we'll talk more about that, and you'll see that hall code card in just a second. We're going to ask that you come in your half-hour appointment window. We don't want you to think that you only have a half hour to move in, because obviously once you get here, you can take as much time as you need to get settled, but you do have that half-hour window to drive in, get settled. And then you follow your directions to your loading area. And then we will help you get your items out of your vehicle. And then we'll ask you to move that car. And then that check-in process just goes really, really quick. And you'll see the smiling faces up here. I think it's just obvious that we work really hard on this move-in process, and we want it to go well for you.
Sarah, can I interrupt you for a second? Questions have started to come in. The very first one I love, and I know you'll love this as well after all your years working move-in. Emily tells us UK move-in is a well-oiled machine. We're coming up on our third move-in day in a decade, so that's impressive. And she says, we're always impressed with how easy you all make it. Thank you. So love that feedback from Emily to start with.
Yes, near and dear to my heart. Thank you for the kind compliment. You know, we do work really hard on our move-in experience because we realize it's that rite of passage, right? You know, you're excited, but bittersweet, if you will, for moms and dads sometimes because you know it's a big step. And then we just know that there's a lot of folks that, you know, it's that bittersweet moment, that rite of passage. So we work really hard to make sure your experience is rich.
Yeah, move-in day is a big day for the whole family for sure.
That's
The
right.
next couple of questions are both along the same lines about students who have a need to move in prior to the big blue move-in days, the 15th, 16th, and 17th. So asking questions about how this process looks different or if it looks different at all for students moving in on, for example, August 12th and August 14th. They're asking about if there are going to be carts and dollies available those days, if it's the same system in place, if it's an assisted move-in day or not.
Very good question. Smart parents asking questions. So in terms of the 12th, there will be carts available inside the residence halls always, because we know that when you come home with groceries or, you know, maybe even laundry or, you know, things from home, you'll need that cart to transport your belongings into your res hall. But there won't be folks on the 12th to do that move-in process. On the 14th, we do have a small group that is coming in, and we do plan to, you know, help them unload, and that process is the same, and that is for children and ball halls for our STEM cats.
Yep, the question was from a STEM cat parent, so that's good to know for them. Then we've got some questions about you know, details in the process. So for example, if a family is bringing multiple cars, like if the student's bringing a car and a family member's bringing a car, you know, are there any restrictions there, or how does that look?
Well, obviously, we know that sometimes you have to bring a couple of cars, right? You know, as you say. So what happens when you see this traffic coordinator, you'll say 2 for ball hall. You'll hold up 2. They will radio down to the next traffic controller that there's 2 cars coming. Then that group of unloaders will put those 2 cars together so the family can keep their items all in one spot, if you will, and not get separated from one another. So we've worked really hard on that. Every now and again, a family will get separated. You know, a mom or dad will drive up and say, oh, we don't know what happened. We lost our son or daughter. They're back in, you know, the row. They'll tell us what kind of car they drive. We'll know they're coming, and we'll get those families back in place so we can receive them at the same time.
And then along those same lines, but kind of the reverse, if the student is coming by themselves, and so it's only one person in that vehicle, how does that work in terms of them being able to leave their car for a moment?
So what we know is that sometimes happens, right? You know, families may have commitments, they can't come. We understand that, but we really want that experience to be rich for everyone. So what we do is we make sure that there's someone on our staff that works directly with that resident to make sure that they're comfortable leaving their belongings. Someone stays there and watches them. Part of our staff process to say, it's okay, we're going to watch your belongings, we're going to watch for you to come back, you can go move your car and then come back to us and start that process. So we do have that happen, and when we do, we really make sure that we receive that person well, because obviously they're alone and we want them to feel engaged as well. So we work really hard on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Let's have you go ahead and talk about the hall code cards and some of that, and then we'll come back to some of these other questions we're getting. They are
Awesome.
flowing in, as you can imagine.
Awesome. We love questions.
Well, what we have up right now is just an example of one of the hall code cards. You can go to our move-in website, and there's a specific card for each building. This we ask that you print one of these out before you come to campus, and then display it in your vehicle where it's visible to the traffic controllers as you're driving in, and that'll help them to guide you and make sure you're in the right route for your building.
You
This
can
is-
also write your cell number and those kinds of things on that card. You might see that on the hall code card. And that just helps us if we need to get in touch with you for some reason. If we have your cell number, it's just easy for us to, call you should we need to. So all of the steps are right there on that hall code card, as well as the QR code, which will take you to all of the move-in information. So it's just a good card to have. It helps us. So please print yours off and put it in your dash.
And then this is our overall move-in map that shows all of the routes for our buildings on campus. So you can go to our website and review this, take note of where your route starts. And as Sarah noted earlier, please turn off your GPS as you're approaching these routes. And because we will have one-way streets and other traffic flow changes. So we want to make sure that you come in where this route begins and you're not following a GPS onto a one-way street. And then we also have on the website available specific move-in routes for each building. So you're welcome to print one of these off as well to keep with you, or just review it online before you leave so that you know where you're coming in to the route and how we're going to direct you to your building.
So here's some reminders again. I think that we've gone over these, so I won't, belabor them. But again, if you don't have to bring everything, because you can always bring things another time, we ask that you consider that. We ask that you watch the weather and dress accordingly. We have plastic available. If it rains, you'll see that, we've got plastic over the tables to make sure that we do our best to cover your belongings. We will share that if it storms, our police department is in our emergency operations center during move-in, watching all of the traffic and all of the streets coming into campus. They're communicating with the traffic control folks out in the street. And so should there be a bad storm or even, thunder or lightning, they'll call the event and they'll call out to the traffic controllers and they'll say to us, please keep people in their cars and or bring them into the residence halls until the storm passes. We've been very, very blessed at the university. I think we live in a valley here. And so sometimes we'll say, oh my goodness, here comes a major rainstorm. And for whatever reason, we've just really been lucky in that it typically, just passes campus proper and we move on. We do share that we move on rain or shine. So as long as it's raining, we'll continue to serve you and meet you and greet you, but it is important to dress accordingly. We'll have our traffic control folks out in their vests so they're identifiable. Our UK Police Department is out there working hard with us. Again, arrive in that half-hour move-in appointment. Know that you're not going to get moved in that half hour, but that's the half hour to receive you. And then you're going to be greeted. There's going to be somebody that's going to be there that says, hey, welcome to campus. We're so glad you're here. And then we're going to help you through the process. And then if at all possible, we ask that one guest stay with the belongings while another person moves the car. Obviously, that doesn't happen every time. And when that doesn't, we work to make sure that that person's covered well. And then lastly, that reminder that if you have something that can help you with that first trip, bring it. If not, we'll have carts. So things to know. So as you can imagine, when the university built these beautiful residence halls, it's just so pretty. But part of that being pretty is there's not a lot of concrete or blacktop, if you will, to receive folks. So that's one of the reasons that we work so hard on our process, is that we know that not everyone has time to come up and park and unload and take their time, that we've got to move those cars. And so we put out no parking zones a week before move-in starts, because that's our property, if you will, to receive you. And so we ask that everybody know. So say like you're moving in on the 12th, you would need to know that there are no parking zones for the 15th, the 16th, and 17th, and not to park there. And we'll cover those in just a minute. Again, we hope you have your UK ID made. If not, if you haven't had that done yet, there's still time to have that made. If you've had it made and you haven't had a chance to pick it up, that ID will be at your front desk. We ask that you bring bottled water just to stay hydrated. We're going to have water everywhere, all over campus. We're actually going to have a hydration station available. So if you want to bring your own refillable bottle, you can do that as well. And then we want you to know that as soon as we get you moved in, the wonderful K-Week experience that's made just for you to help you get acclimated to campus is going to start the 17th. And you need to make sure that you make time to do that, because you're expected to be there. And plus, there's so many fun things for your family or your son or daughter to do. We don't want them to miss it. Your dining plans will start the 15th. So you don't have to worry about meals as you move in on the 15th. Your meal plan will work in the dining units. And again, if we can, if one guest can stay with the belongings while one starts that check-in process, one moves the car, that's the best practice. But if not, we've got a workaround. The no parking zones. Now you're going to see these signs up on our campus a week before move-in starts. And so for each one of these streets, there will be a no parking area, reminding folks not to park there midnight to 6 p.m. And again, it's not that we want to be, mean and control our streets. We just want to make sure that when you come to campus, that these unloading zones are available for you. And that we're able to receive you. And so we communicate with the campus proper. We have these signs out. An email will go out to all faculty and staff and the folks moving in. So there should be no problem. But just want to reiterate, if your son or daughter is moving in early, it is important for them to be mindful of these no parking zones.
In terms of what to bring as you're packing, we do have a list on our move-in website. Make sure to get the right linen size for your specific hall. And you may want to encourage students to work with their roommate for items in shared spaces such as bathroom supplies. And then we want students to be able to personalize their room and make it feel like home, but there are some items from a life safety perspective to keep all students safe that we ask they not bring to campus. And you can see this list, but please review the full list on our website before you pack for campus. Good news is you do not need to bring a refrigerator. We do have a micro fridge in each residence hall room. There's one per room, and it is a combination with a refrigerator, freezer, and microwave. And they're designed for energy efficiency using the same outlet. So they're designed specifically for use in the residence hall rooms.
So we know that when you come to campus and you get your items unloaded and everything, that it takes a while, right, to get your room decorated and settled. You might want to run to Walmart or Target or Kroger to get a few items. And so we don't want to hurry you, but we do ask that all families and guests be out at 8 p.m. on each day of move-in. And the reason we do that is, as you can imagine, we want to keep our campus safe. So there is no guest allowed August 12th through the 14th, as well as August 15th through the 17th. And then the regular visitation policy will begin on August 18th at noon. But again, say that you move your son or daughter in on the 15th and you want to come back on the 16th because you forgot something. You are more than welcome to come back as long as your visit is over by 8 p.m. during those days of move-in. Then we know that, with all homes, no matter how hard you try, there's always maintenance requests, right? I know that I have them at my home. Things they crop up, and when they do, obviously we have staff available to come make sure that your maintenance issues are covered well. So we run a 24/7, 365 call center. So you can call us, you can send an email through this listserv, or you can text us, and we will have maintenance or cleaners come out to do whatever work it is that you need done. So you can do this at move-in. If you move in and there's something that's not just right, and we hope that it is, we're working really hard to make sure all of the rooms are clean and sanitized and ready for you, and lights are working, and all things are, proper and pristine. But if for some reason you have an experience and you move in and you need something done, we want you to know there's an easy way to get us. And we want you to use this mechanism to get with us so we can get right back to you to get your room in the proper condition you need it to be in. And this is open 24/7, 365 days out of the year. So it's not something that we just do during move-in, but this is the way you can communicate with maintenance throughout the year as well. So then we open it up for questions. We know that sometimes, when you're on these Cat Chat Lives, you may think, oh, well, that's good. I heard all the questions and answers that I need. But for some reason, you check off here and you think, oh, I wish I'd asked this, or, I've got another question. We want you to know that we're here for you throughout the year. We, again, are so excited to have your sons and daughters and your family members on campus. We believe it's the smart choice and that they're going to have a really rich experience. And so we can't wait for the move-in to begin.
All right, we definitely have lots of questions in the comments. They tend to work around some themes, so we'll go through all of these, as many as we have time for in our allotted time. Getting back to what Melissa talked about earlier with things to bring and things not to bring, Denise has a question about restrictions on how to hang things on the wall. And Melissa said no excessive wall coverings, but are there recommendations on how to use or how to hang things on the walls? And then Denise is also asking if there's a shared vacuum the students can use.
So I'll take that, Melissa. So what I know about these command strips is they're absolutely wonderful as long as you follow them to the T. But you can put things up with a command strip, and if you take it down wrong, you can take the drywall down. So we ask that if command strips are the way you hang your items at home, to feel free to use those here. They are acceptable, but they can be tricky. So sometimes a really small nail, if you will, a painter's nail, might be the way to hang things. But we want that to be your choice. Obviously, if you've got a question about something that you want to hang and you're concerned, you can contact our maintenance department to say, hey, we want to place this here and we want this to be right, but we don't want any damage to occur. You can always work with our maintenance staff to get some direction on that. In terms of the excessive wall coverings, the reason we say that is these residence halls are beautiful. They don't need a lot to make them, very, very nice. And from a life safety perspective, we want very much to make sure that your walls are clear of combustible materials, so we keep students safe. So that's why the excessive wall covering comment is on there. And then finally, there are vacuums at the front desk, but if you want to pick up one of those vacuum brooms that you can get pretty reasonably at Walmart, Target, the department stores, a lot of folks will throw in that little vacuum broom just to have their own personal vacuum.
Speaking of students, Sarah's asking a good question about how this information is being shared with students. If they're receiving anything in the mail or if it's all coming to their email, how are we making sure that they get this information as well?
So they're getting it a number of ways. Obviously, when they went through the orientation process, there was a section about, move in there. They're getting some email notifications about all of this good information, as well as there are some social media posts, if you will, that point them to the direction of the move-in website. So again, if you're concerned that maybe they haven't seen that, if you would share the move-in website with them, I think that's a good review before they come.
And just to add, I think a lot of the move-in information that we've talked about in terms of the hall code cards and routes and maps, that's going to be coming out in the Countdown to Kentucky newsletter that's coming out this week to new students. So ask them to watch for that in their email.
Sarah, you alluded to this earlier about making sure that the rooms are ready to go for move-in. I had a couple of folks ask if they should plan to allow some time to clean before they start moving everything in. Do you have recommendations there?
So I think that's a personal thing, if you will. My daughter teases me and says, I clean before the cleaners come because that's just my nature. And so it just makes me feel good to do that work. The rooms are cleaned and should be ready, and that shouldn't be necessary. But obviously, you're responsible to clean your own room throughout the year. So if you want to throw some cleaning supplies in there and just, hit a top sparkle, if you will, sparkle it out right before you leave. I think folks do that. I know when my daughter moved in, even though I knew the rooms had been cleaned, I sort of, brought a paper towel, some product and hit the high spots, if you will, and did a little vacuum because when you're opening up your linen packages and all of these things, the cardboard dust, all of that sort of, spreads around. So that one last dust out just makes you feel nice.
Right. The move-in process itself generates some mess with it for sure. We've got a couple of questions asking, I know that there is designated parking for folks to move their cars to. They're asking if they can go ahead and have their students, if they're not planning on parking in K-Lot this school year, if they can go ahead and move to their designated garage or where they'll be parking throughout the school year, or if they need to use that designated parking.
Yes, that's a very good question. And we recommend that they do that they go ahead and move their vehicle to their parking lot that they're going to have all year long. And when they're at Kroger Field, if they're going to North Campus, they'll want to get on a blue route bus to take them back to their res hall. If they're going to the Woodland Glen area, the Honors Quad, Donovan, Johnson, Smith, they'll want to get on the white route. So the blue route is for North Campus, white is for the Central Campus.
And sometimes, just depending on where your hall is, a lot of students will choose to move to our designated parking for move-in and take that shuttle back and then move to their parking lot location for their permit later in the day, because it just depends on where their permit is for, because some of the routes, as we mentioned, are one way. So it may take them longer to get back to that spot, during the move-in process, but they can move there after that process if they're not able to during.
Also related to parking, got a question about folks who may need accommodations for disability and what the recommendations are there. So what would you suggest?
There is some ADA parking, but what I would do is reach out to transportation now to sort of get those things ironed out before you come. Obviously, there are lots with the ADA parking available throughout campus, and I would just want to make sure that they connect so they can get those permits, know where all of those spots are all over campus to make sure that they're accommodated well when they're here.
Got a couple of folks asking if they can change their move-in appointments at this point. How would their student go about doing that?
I'm going to defer to our move-in appointment expert, Melissa Perot.
I was assuming I was taking that one. So yes, you can go back into your housing portal, log in through My UK the same way that they scheduled it to begin with, and they will see their current appointment time. They can actually cancel that one and choose from the available time slots that are there for appointments.
Then I've got a question also related to move-in timing and appointments. So if they have a 9 a.m. move-in appointment, what time should they actually arrive? Should they arrive earlier than that to account for traffic in the area? What do you recommend there?
Yeah, we've built out the appointments so that is like 9 to 9:30 would be your arrival window. So you can arrive, sort of anytime in that window. And, anytime, we're not going to turn you away from that, but, in that window just makes everything flow more smoothly for everyone.
And then speaking of traffic, we do have a question asking if more than 2 cars are allowed.
Yes, we have more than 2 cars. If we had more time, I could share what all has been brought in the past. So we have some funny stories about some things that have been brought to campus before, but yes, 2 cars are allowed.
And I would just say, if you don't have items to unload in one of the vehicles, it may be best to go ahead and park that vehicle and ride in another one, because I know sometimes people just drive to campus separately, but there's nothing really to unload. So if you're able to not bring those extra vehicles into the unloading zone, again, there's not a whole lot of space there sometimes, so it may be a better experience, but we'll certainly accept them through, if people are bringing more than 2.
Yeah, that's a good tip. If you've got more passengers in that vehicle than you have belongings.
Yeah.
We also have a series of questions for students who haven't had a UK ID made yet. I've provided the link in at least one spot to go ahead and submit a photo online to make it easy, as you were saying that the IDs then could be in place in the lobbies that day. But have you had conversations with the ID office about students who need to go and get an ID made their move-in day? And do you recommend that they do that before they move in? Can they do it after they've unloaded their belongings? What do you recommend?
So that's a great question. What we want is to not slow the process down. So there'll be some temporary IDs made at the residence hall. So if for some reason you've not had a chance to pick it up and it's not there for some reason, and you want to go have that made later, we ask that you come on in, just let them know that you don't have it yet. They'll give you a temp card. They'll allow you to go in your room and get settled. And then once you get your belongings in, then you can run to their office to have your ID made.
Christine's asking another good question about IDs. And this is something that, even though I've worked on campus for years, because I've never lived in one of these modern university residence halls, I didn't know the answer to until I chatted with some of our student staff this summer. She was asking what the ID off or the student ID card actually opens. Does it open just the suite? Does it open their actual room? What do they use the ID for in the halls?
So inside the residence halls, the ID gets you inside your residence hall, period. Your res hall exterior door is swiped in, right? So you'll get in that space. It's sometimes used in the elevator. So, it knows that you're, part of the group that's getting on the elevator, as well as your front door to your residence hall suite. And then once you get into your room, a hard key is given to you for your respective room.
That was the part I didn't know. I thought their ID office opened their room too. And then some of our student staff said, no, I have a key that opens my actual door. So that was good to know. Tracy's asking if the suite doors can be propped open during move-in. She'd heard a rumor that drains the batteries in the keypad that takes the ID. So she wasn't sure if that was an option.
We normally don't want you to prop your doors open because, again, it's a life safety issue. All of the door closures, all of the things, life safety is so important to us. We want to make sure that every resident that lives with us is safe. But we know that, let's face it, you're moving in a lot of items. You may want to put cardboard there. You wouldn't want to prop your door open all the time because it does drain the battery. But obviously for move-in day, it's not a problem.
All right, we've got a couple of questions here as I'm scrolling down, asking about some other items that are either available in the residence halls or that they can bring into the halls. Colleen's asking if there are shared irons and ironing boards available for communal use, or if that's something they need to bring. And Denise is asking about over-the-door hooks and whether those are allowed.
So irons and ironing boards are not available as common use. I know that my daughter brought a little steamer. You can get one of those for pretty inexpensive. And so rather than having the big ironing board and iron, she bought a little steamer that she used. And I laughingly say very sparingly, I'm not sure why, but I'm like, Grace, you could use the steamer a little bit more, but there's not a common one. Obviously, if an iron is something that you want to bring, you can do that. And again, you might want to contact your roommate to just make sure they're not bringing one too, because, that's something that you can typically share. You're not going to be using at the same time. And then the over-the-door hooks, you can bring those as well. Not everybody wants one, but you want to be careful that you get the kind that your door still shuts, if you will. So you don't want to have something on your door that would prevent you from closing your bedroom door or those things.
Yeah.
There's a lot of wonderful storage space inside the residence halls. Just beautiful space under the counters. There's a desk that has a couple of drawers in it, and then there are two cabinets, if you will, that you can stack to make a dresser, and or if you want, you can put those under your bed. There's an armoire in some of the res halls, as well as a closet in some of the residence halls. So there's really a lot of storage space, if you will, in each one of these residence halls.
Yeah, where would families find dimensions, or students find the dimensions for their particular residence halls? I know we're getting a lot of questions about that in our UK Wildcat Families Facebook group.
Right, so the dimensions are on our website, and Melissa, you'll have to help me. I think that they're under each respective hall, but if not, I know they're on our move-in page. If for some reason they're not identifiable like I believe they are, as easily as I think they are, you can certainly write us at the campus housing office, and we'll get you those. But I'm pretty sure we put room measurements on each one of the halls, because we get those questions about curtains and those kinds of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Got a couple of questions asking about changes in housing assignments. Liz is asking if what the last day is that the student may be notified of a change in the dorm, and then Nikki's asking if roommates can switch rooms within the suites on their own if they wanted a different room.
So say, me and you, Nancy, are roommates, and Melissa and Emily are roommates. And we're assigned to the A room and you're assigned to the B room. For life safety reasons, we ask that you respect the A room that you're assigned to. Obviously, if you want to work to make those swaps later, there's time frames to do that. But you're supposed to live in the room that you're placed in, if you will, just for life safety reasons. should there be an emergency in the building, obviously there's a roster that's associated with the people that live in those buildings. In terms of room swap and those things, there will be time allotted, and depending on the availability of rooms, right? So if there's something that, you want to switch or what have you, it will depend on whether or not that's available later. We work really hard to do our best to make everybody happy, but we have an unprecedented amount of residents coming to campus, and I think that just shows the great love of the university that folks have. And so we're excited to be welcoming the largest freshman class ever. So there's not going to be as much movement around because of that.
Yeah, it's an exciting time to be on campus for sure with this big incoming class. You mentioned life safety is a reason that roommates shouldn't swap rooms within their suites. And I have a question related to safety about asking if it's okay if they put a portable carbon monoxide reader in their room.
I don't know that I've been asked that question. It is not on our list of things not to bring. And so my first inclination is going to be that they can bring them. Obviously, I would be mindful of, size, the power it pulls, those kinds of things. But if you're really concerned and want to know, please write the housing office. Say, please reach out to Sarah Nykirk. She wants to hook up with the fire marshal to ask, specifically about the item you want to bring, because I want to be able to share back with you, yes or no, so you're not bringing something that you don't need. But I'm 98% sure that it's something you can bring.
Yeah, I wanted to ask that question because that's not one that I think we've gotten in the past either. Well, I see that we're coming up a couple of minutes past 1 o'clock, and we want to be good stewards of your time. I know we've had folks that have been coming and going and joining the chat, after we got started, and want to assure you that this video will be available on the UK Parent and Family Association Facebook page for you to watch if you didn't get to join us from the beginning, or if you need to rewatch sections of it. It will be also posted in a little bit later this week on our YouTube channel. So that's another good way to view this good information that has been shared today by Sarah and Melissa. I will be going in the next few minutes and continuing to answer some of these questions in the chat. We're able to share the links and all of the good information that's been shared. As you continue to watch or rewatch, feel free to put additional questions in the chat, and we will continue to go through and answer those and make sure you're getting all of the information you need to prepare for move-in. We hope you'll join us for the next Cat Chat Live. Instead of being the moderator for that one, I will be the presenter. I will be talking about K-Week. You alluded to move-in being the process before K-Week gets underway, and so I'll be going live Thursday at 12:15 Eastern Time with a member of our K-Week student staff to share all of the fun things the university has planned for our incoming class as part of K-Week. Again, that is going to be this Thursday at 12:15 Eastern Time, back here on the UK Parent and Family Association Facebook page. Sarah, Melissa, so many folks are posting in the comments a thank you, and that this was very informative and helpful as they're making plans with their students for the start of the fall semester. So thank you so much, as always, for your time and the information that you presented today. You're wonderful campus partners, and you just have such a big heart for making sure that this is the best experience that it can be to kick off our students' time at the University of Kentucky. So thank you so much to you all, and to you folks for joining in and being with us live here for Cat Chat Live. Have a great rest of your day, and go Cats.
That's right. Be safe, travel safe. Can't wait to see you.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.